Hey, it's Patrick, and today I'm going to show you how to change the clutch on a Milwaukee 8 touring bike. Now, the reason you'd want to do this is if you feel your clutch start to go. So you're probably going to feel that first in like the higher RPM ranges. Say you're on the highway, go to pass a truck or something like that. When you twist that throttle, you hear those RPMs go up, but you're not getting the same pull. Your clutch is probably starting to slip. You also may feel it start to engage really, really fast, like it's wearing away and you can't pull the clutch in far enough. Those are signs you're probably going to want to check the clutch out. Now today, we're just doing a straight fibers and steel swap. We're not using OEM components, we're upgrading a little bit. We're gonna be using a Barnett clutch pack. Now if you have a hot rod or you just want a more hot rod clutch setup, there are other modifications you can do. You could go to something like a Barnett Scorpion that's gonna change that inner hub. It's also gonna change to a billet pressure plate with more springs on the outside. You can even go as far, if you're building a real hot rod, changing to something like a billet clutch basket. But for our purposes today, we just have this street bike here. We just need to do a straight clutch swap, so we're doing fibers and steels. Any of the tools we're going to use today we'll list in the description down below. You'll be able to do this in your garage with basic hand tools. The first thing we need to do is get all of our primary fluid out. So we're going to get a 5/8. We're going to take our drain plug out and get this draining. Fairly normal to have some sort of buildup on that magnet. That's nothing alarming. You shouldn't be too alarmed if you have just a little bit of sludge on there. That's off the clutch fibers in there. We're just going to wipe that off. Make sure it's nice and clean before we put it back in there. So while that's draining, we're gonna get this floorboard and get it out of our way. We're also gonna move the shifter. For the floorboard, we're gonna take a 5/16 Allen. I'm just gonna pull the rear screw. You might have to loosen up the front one just to swing the floorboard down out of the way so we can get the cover off. You could also probably leave the shifter on. I'm gonna take ours off, take a 3/16 Allen, take that bolt out of there just to give us a little more room before we get to the cover. So something I do here is I put a little mark on the shift shaft that lines up with the split in the shifter. And what that's for is, that's why I don't have to adjust my shifter again. I know I have it right where I want it. When I go to put this back on, it'll make sure it goes back in the same spot and I don't have to make any adjustments. So before we go ahead and take our primary cover off, there's something I like to do. I take the new gasket and I mark all of the holes with the backer that comes with the gasket. The reason I do that, then when I take off those screws, I just poke them back into the holes where they're supposed to go. If there's a longer screw or a shorter screw, I don't have to find it or remember where it goes. I already know where all of the screws go. So now that I have that marked, I'm gonna take a 3/16 Allen. I'm gonna take all of these screws off, pop our primary cover off and our old gasket. We did drain the fluid out of here, but this is gonna get a little messy. More fluid's gonna run out when we take this cover off, so it's not a bad idea to throw some rags down. So this may, in fact, probably won't just fall right off. It's probably gonna be a little bit stuck. You might have to give it a little smack, even with the rubber mallet. Sometimes they're really stuck on there. So we're gonna jump over here on the right side of the bike and we have the adjuster part of our clutch cable slid up. We wanna put slack in this. The old school ones, you would thread the 9/16 off and you would thread the adjuster piece up and down. The newer ones aren't like that. We just need to put slack in this so when we do our adjustment on our clutch, then we can come back over afterwards and do the cable adjustment. You don't wanna do the clutch adjustment after you do the cable adjustment. So we're gonna pop this red button out right here. We're gonna compress this spring and then push the button back in. So what should happen is this spring will be compressed and the button will be holding it all together, like that. Spring's compressed, it's holding it together. When we get all done, we'll adjust the clutch at the clutch. We'll come over and we'll release this and it will automatically be adjusted. So next, we're gonna loosen up our adjuster with a 7/32 Allen and 11/16 wrench. We'll loosen that up. Then we'll grab this snap ring right here, a set of snap ring pliers, and pull it out, and it'll allow us to take out our adjuster. Careful when you take that snap ring out that it doesn't go shooting across your garage. Probably happened to me that way. So now that we have our snap ring out, we can pull out our adjuster. Also gonna take a 10mm and loosen these 3 bolts up here. These have spring pressure on them, so you wanna loosen them at the same time. Don't just take one out then the other because it'll get all cockeyed. And then we'll be able to take our pressure plate out, and then all of the fibers and steels will come out together. There's gonna be 2 little metal rings in there, actually like a spring. One of them is thick and flat, and the other one has like an angle to it. That's in there to help reduce clutch shatter. So before we get to installing our actual clutch plates, we need to soak the frictions. Whatever fluid you're gonna use in your primary, we're gonna be using some red line fluid today. You need to soak the frictions for 1 to 3 minutes according to Barnett. If you can't pull something out of your garbage can to use, you can actually use the bag. I'll give you show you how to do that as well as just regular old soaking. You don't have to get crazy. You don't have to like submerge these in the perfect size container. You just basically need to get them covered for about 3 minutes and then wipe them all off. Use some sort of lint-free rag, wipe them off before you put them back in the bike. They don't need to be soaking wet. They'll just make a huge mess. So as long as you get this covered, keep it pretty well covered for, give it a good dousing for a couple of minutes, you'll be in good shape. All the sides good and wet. I'm gonna wipe these off. Tout le motorcycle. So we saved our thin little steel plates here. And basically what this is a spring and a seat. Want to put this flat one in first, and then the other one that has the bevel to it, that angle, we want to put it in next, and we want that bevel kicking out like this, so the narrowest part of the bevel will be facing in. Next, we need to pay attention to the sequence of our clutch plates. We have frictions and steels. We have 2 types of each. We have a wide and a narrow. In my hand here, I have 3 narrow frictions and 1 narrow steel. You'll see the difference when I put a wide friction up to the narrow. You can see how it's wider this way. Same thing with the steel. If I put a wide steel up there, you're gonna see the difference, how it's thicker. What we wanna start with first is we wanna start with a narrow friction. You can only really put these in one way. You have to put those little ears into the slots. We're gonna push it all the way back. From there, we're gonna alternate back and forth steel, fiber, steel, fiber. We already have a fiber in there, but now we're going to wide steel. We're gonna go wide steel, wide fiber, so on and so forth until we run out of these. So all we have to do is alternate friction and steel. So after we run out of alternating fibers, wide fibers and steels, you should be left with the steel. So after that, we're gonna go narrow fiber, narrow steel, and narrow fiber. And you can see we're running out of clutch hub. So you may have to install the last 1 or 2 onto the pressure plate when we go to put that on. So I'm gonna drop these onto this pressure plate for funsies. So new springs come with the kit. We're gonna replace our old springs with our new springs. When we go ahead and put our pressure plate on, again, when you tighten this up, go back and forth. Don't tighten one all the way down, the other one all the way down. It'll be in there all cockeyed. So we'll go around the rosy there and tighten them down together, torque them down 72 to 106 inch-pounds. So now we're gonna put our adjuster in. Make sure you dial that out a ways so you know that's not gonna touch the push rod in there. Also, if for some reason you took it out, make sure that clutch push rod is in there, otherwise none of this is gonna work. So we're gonna put this in there, throw our snap ring back in, and then we'll get into making the clutch adjustment. So now we're gonna make our clutch adjustment. We're gonna take our 7/32 Allen, and we're going to run this adjuster down just till you feel it stop. And it's not gonna be a dead stop. Basically, you're gonna feel it start to get pressure on it. You need to have kind of a light touch here, right there. Now, if you keep cranking this down, it'll start to open this clutch and mess up your adjustment. So you just wanna barely touch it. After we get it touched down, we're gonna squeeze our clutch lever 3 times, according to the manual. We're gonna come back down here. We're gonna back this off anywhere a half to a full turn. I am partial to just over maybe a half turn. After we got it there, we're gonna tighten this down, tighten the lock nut down with our 11/16 wrench. Once that's tight, we're gonna go to the other side of the bike and release our clutch cable. So now we just need to release this button on our clutch cable. We'll release that, pop that button out. This is going to expand. After that, we just push the button in, slide our cover down. We'll head back to the other side of the bike to start to wrap things up. So we're gonna start to button this primary up. We're gonna go ahead and throw our new gasket on, and then we're gonna put our primary cover on. When we put our primary cover on, we're going to put our hardware back in with a little bit of blue Loctite. We're gonna torque that to 144 to 156 inch-pounds. They do go in a sequence. We used this earlier. This is the backer from our gasket. We put our bolts through it. This is the sequence you need to follow according to the manual to tighten that up, and then torque each one accordingly to that 144 to 156 foot-pounds. Also, while you're doing it, make sure your drain plug is torqued from 14 to 21 foot-pounds. After we get that done, we get to filling this thing back up with fluid. So now we need to put our primary fluid in here. We're gonna take a T27, we're gonna take our 5 bolts out of our derby cover, and the manual says 30 ounces of fluid for a wet fill up and 34 ounces for a dry. We're probably somewhere in between there, so we're gonna hit it at 32 with 1 full container of our primary fluid. If you're just eyeballing this, the bottom of the derby cover, when this is standing straight up and down, is a good gauge. We're just gonna go right in the middle at 32. After that, we'll put our derby cover back on, we'll put our floorboard back on, we'll put our shifter back on, and we'll be ready to wrap this up. So that wraps up our clutch install. All in all, you can do this in your garage with hand tools. Give yourself a couple hours so you don't get in a hurry. You could do this in a Saturday afternoon. When you do get done with it though, take it for a quick test drive. Don't pull straight out into traffic. Test ride around your neighborhood or your driveway or something like that. Make sure everything is working and adjusted properly. This is gonna be basically the same install no matter what type of clutch replacement you do, as long as you keep the stock pressure plate and inner and outer hub. Like I said, we upgraded to a Barnett. You can use any type you want. The install is going to be basically the same. If you're looking for more information on this clutch pack, go ahead and click that info tab on your desktop mobile device. It'll take you to the product detail page where you can read other riders' reviews and more specs about this clutch pack. If you're still looking for more information, feel free to reach out to our customer service team. They would love to talk to you about what works best for you, your motorcycle, and your budget. I am Patrick. Thank you for watching. And go work on those motorcycles.